In strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
Hello and welcome to StratNewsGlobal. I'm Nilanjana Banerjee. This evening, our focus is on Kashmir. You're all aware of the spate of targeted killings there, and the question we're asking this evening is Kashmir on the brink of losing everything it had gained over the last few years? To give us his perspective, I'm joined by Mr. Ajai Sahni. He is the Executive Director of the Institute for Conflict Management. Mr. Sahni, thank you very much for taking out the time to speak to us. And welcome to StratNewsGlobal.
Thank you for having me.
My first question to you, Mr. Sahni, is the situation in the valley as bad as it is being made out to be?
I think broadly the commentary, with few exceptions, no doubt, has been exaggerated, almost hysterical. People have been drawing parallels to the situation in the 1990s, and I think that is verging on the absurd. We are today seeing violence, of course, but at a fraction of what we saw in Jammu and Kashmir at the peak of terrorism in the state. So certainly now, when I say this, I must make a distinction between the personal security or personal risk on the one hand and state security or national security on the other. What you are talking about and what people are responding to is the sense of insecurity of the very minuscule Hindu community which has been targeted over there in the valley.
Yes.
And very certainly the risk to them is great, but the risk to state security is very small. It is a fraction of what prevailed earlier. This distinction is important because the sense of fear, the protests that you are seeing from the particularly the Kashmiri Pandit community, the articulation of a wider sense of risk or disturbance in other targeted communities. You must understand that not only Hindus but all dissidents are being targeted. The police and their families are being targeted. Government employees who are not Hindus are being targeted. So
Yes.
you have several categories of individuals, and certainly when you have a successful campaign of targeted killings, you will have a sense of very widespread fear, even if the killings are a small number. So at a personal level, there is a very justifiable sense of fear, which is the intention of such killings. But at a national security level or a state security level, the risks are very small.
Right. So, in a recent article, you have written about hybrid terrorists. So, coming to these attacks, are the perpetrators the usual suspects, or is there a change in the profile of the attackers?
You see, I use the term hybrid terrorist because that is what everyone is using right now. It's not a
All
term
right.
that I think articulates anything that is new, as is being. We have this, constant reinvention of things because people want to suggest things are new. You have always had a mix of terrorists. When the terrorist dominates the field, at that juncture, you will have large groups, you will have more organization, you will have groups that are clearly identified, the Lashkar-e-Taiba, the Jaish-e-Mohammed. When you have a situation of the dominance of state forces, which is substantially the case in Jammu and Kashmir now, you have a process of adaptation. This process of adaptation has now drawn in youngsters who have no background in terrorism. It's not the first time. There have always been people for particular kinds of operations. You draw in people who have no background in crime or terrorism, do not have a history sheet, are not under any kind of suspicion. And these people are deployed for particular kinds of tasks depending on the state of the movement. As I said before, today they are moving more and more into urban areas or into reasonably urbanized large concentrations where they are engaging in targeted killings. You've had targeted killings since the beginning of the movement, from 88, from 89 onwards.
Yes.
But here you have a situation where most of the operations that are now successfully being executed by the terrorists are these targeted killings. And they are being done by youngsters who do not have a background in terrorism and are likely only to execute one or two operations of this nature. Most of them get caught or killed in the single operation that they are tasked to execute. So this is what the police and then the general media has started referring to as hybrid terrorism.
Right. But, sir, there is a concern that these attacks could basically, be a build up to something bigger. How would you describe the organization, the planning, and the execution of these targeted killings?
First of all, I would like to say that I do not believe that this is a sustainable pattern of attack. If these individuals are going to be caught or killed after a single operation, you will suddenly see the number of volunteers dissipating very suddenly. Uh, these at present, what we are seeing is a mobilization and a direction of these individuals over the internet, largely, according to the police, coming from handlers across the border from Pakistan. So what is happening is individuals who seem to be inclined towards violence or inclined towards separatism as a movement are identified, recruited, given basic instructions in weapons use over the internet itself, and then have a local handing over a weapon to them. They go out, they are given a specific target, they execute the operation, get rid of the weapon or return the weapon to someone who is waiting just outside. And then either, if they are lucky enough, escape to their homes, where they may most likely be traced out and arrested by the police, or if they get into an engagement immediately thereafter with security forces, there is a possibility of death. So this is the broad paradigm of what are these so-called hybrid terrorist attacks, and a large proportion of current attacks are in this pattern.
You referred to the youth. So, is the radical Islamization of the youth a major concern? Because, with Afghanistan under the Taliban, what are you hearing about the forces or the groups which are focused on India over there?
First of all, I do not believe that the Taliban has any interest in extending its movement or Islamization to India. The Taliban has always been an Afghan centric and Afghan oriented group. They're not really interested in outside groupings. However, they are affiliated to a number of global terrorist organizations, certainly the Al Qaeda, as well as some of the organizations which are Pakistan based groupings like the Lashkar-e-Taiba has operations across the border, or has a very strong affiliation with the Afghan Taliban. Elements of the Jaish-e-Mohammed are also located across the border. But I don't think this represents a discontinuity in terms of threat. Lashkar and Jaish have always been supported by the Pakistani state. And the Pakistani state is far more coherent a threat, far more powerful a threat than the rather disorganized and currently crisis ridden Taliban. So I don't believe that the takeover of the Taliban in Afghanistan represents any discontinuous and dramatic escalation of the threat in Jammu and Kashmir. Our problem remains Pakistan in principle and
All right.
small elements of the Kashmiri population within the state.
Right. We were just talking about Taliban and Afghanistan, and we have a question from, in fact, one of our viewers. So you've already answered that, but I would still like to take that question in case you have something else to add. Sunil KS, he writes, recently, United States has released a report which has revealed that Islamic States and Al Qaeda is gaining ground in Afghanistan after the Taliban takeover. How does that impact the security situation in Kashmir? You have answered it, but is there anything more you would like to add to it, sir?
Well, first of all, you must understand Al Qaeda, of course, is fairly close to the Taliban, but the Islamic State is in an adversarial relationship. I believe these groupings are going to continue to fight among themselves. There is, even within the Taliban, enormous dissent, enormous potential for conflict. Afghanistan has a multiplicity of crises currently coming onto what is this very rudimentary administration or quasi-state structure under the Taliban. They're going to be far too busy with their own problems to be really having the capacity or the focus to turn their attention to India or to Kashmir.
Right. And of course, all these attacks, the targeted killings have led to very fierce political debates across the country. So, how would you describe the government's efforts at containing the situation?
First of all, I'd like to talk about these so-called fierce political debates.
All
The
right.
biggest problem to my mind is that we seem to be in perpetuity in an election mode. Uh, Truth is completely, in fact, there is no factual content in most of these debates. It's
Mhm.
opinion, and the opinion is overwhelmingly partisan. It's got something, you hold to an opinion because you have an affiliation or a loyalty to a particular party or to the
Yeah.
to its adversary. So facts have simply gone out of the window. There is no sense of that. Now coming to the government's position, I do not think the current regime has been able to successfully do anything that goes beyond what had been done before, despite their boasts about what the impact of 370 and all the many initiatives they have taken before and after that. Basically, the dominance of the state in Jammu and Kashmir is a success of the security forces, and it predates the current regime. In fact, if you look at the data, the lowest that we have reached in terms of fatalities, both of civilians and in all three categories, in fact, was in 2012. After
Mm.
that, we have seen a steady worsening of the situation first, with fatalities going up to over 450, and then a slight decline, but not close. We're still in the well into the 200s in terms of fatalities last year. So we are not in a situation that is comparable to the bottom or the best performance, which was achieved in 2012.
Right.
Whatever this may be, however, the credit goes to the security forces. I don't think there is any policy element that has brought about this achievement or this dominance of the security forces. The second element I'd like to emphasize is that almost every element that this government had emphasized when it took its option or the revocation of 370, every justification it gave has failed. It said that it would completely eliminate terrorism, and that hasn't happened. Terrorism continues at the levels at least preceding and or at levels that are comparable to the last preceding decade. Uh, they said that development processes would suddenly get a fillip because there would be massive investment into Jammu and Kashmir. Now, I find this claim itself to be absurd because development and investment always follows security. You have to
Yeah.
first secure the state, and then you will see that you don't really have to do all sorts of tamashas and hold investment conclaves in Srinagar, and people will come themselves. If you have the appropriate framework and you have security on the ground, money will come in. Money hasn't come in, so that is very clearly, I think, evidence of the fact that you don't have the necessary conditions on the ground. The third thing they said was that they would return the Kashmiri Pandits back to the valley, to their homes in the valley. Now, they have tried to push back a small number of individuals. They claim some 3,000 odd Kashmiri Pandits have gone back to the valley.
Yeah.
Nearly 2,000, a little over 2,000 of these have been given jobs in the valley. Some of them have joined, some of them haven't joined. Uh, the government is insisting that they must go to the valley, despite the fact that they cannot ensure or secure them in the valley. The Director General of Police, Dilbag Singh, has made it very clear that as long as Pakistan's role continues, as long as the guns are available in the valley, they cannot give any kind of a guarantee against targeted killings. These targeted killings are going to continue. If that is the
Mhm.
case, then I think it is callous and it is a cynical indifference to the loss of innocent lives if you are trying to just send the Kashmiri Pandits back to make a political point that, oh, we have been very successful, we have fulfilled another promise. So, on all these three principal justifications they gave for the removal of Article 370, or rather revocation or whatever dilution of Article 370, I think they have not succeeded. In terms of their policy interventions, most of them have been disruptive, have been negative. The division of the state, which they immediately said that we are going to reverse. If you were going to, not division of the state, the change of the state to a union territory, which they almost immediately announced that they are going to reverse. So what was the purpose, or you had central rule? You could have had a central rule in a state as well as you could have had it in a union territory. This new delimitation exercise, it is very, very clear to anyone who sees it that the criteria used are arbitrary and have not been used across the valley and the Jammu region uniformly. It has not been done in a transparent or fair manner. This is again another, I think, provocation, part of their whole orientation to polarize populations. And this is the essence of everything that they have done, every move they have made. The purpose appears not to settle the situation in Jammu and Kashmir, but to polarize the populations of Jammu and Kashmir, and also to demonize the Muslim population for the larger Indian constituency that supports the ruling party.
I see. In fact, I'm glad you talked about delimitation, because we had a viewer who asked us a question on that. But there's also another question. How long will terrorist insurgency last? There seems to be no end to it. I think that is the question that is on the mind.
I think that's it's a tremendously important question.
Yes,
and
yes.
it requires something that, everyone thinks that there is a magical solution to these things. But please understand, we have come from a situation where for 17 years, you had a high-intensity conflict. Yes. 8 of those years saw more than 2,000 people killed. 1 year saw more than 4,000 people killed. Today, we have a situation where 200, 300, sometimes a little over 400 people are killed. That is terrible. I'm not trying to say that. But what I would like to emphasize is that were it not for this kind of polarizing politics, this kind of policies that are undermining the achievements of the security forces, we would have been much better off. But even at this level, you must understand that a solution is in play. A solution is not something that you sit down and wave a wand, or sit at a negotiating table and 3 people sign a document and everything is resolved. Yes. We have come from a situation where thousands were dying to a situation where a few hundred are dying. Even a few hundred is far too many. But please understand, this itself constitutes a process towards a resolution. When will this end? It will end when governments act with sagacity. Security forces can control the situation. They can dominate the ground. But eventually the solution will have to be a solution that the political players provide. Right. And the initiative is with the stronger party. It is with the dominant party. That means it is with the state. We will have to provide the solutions. We cannot keep on saying that the other side, the adversary, and everybody says Pakistan, Pakistan, Pakistan. Absolutely. Pakistan is creating mischief wherever it can. But then why are we complaining about that? That is the enemy. It is his job to create problems for us. Terrorism and insurgency has been resolved on Indian soil, despite Pakistani intervention in other theaters. Punjab had support from Pakistan, the Khalistanis. It was defeated on the ground. Tripura had support from outside the country, from Bangladesh, but Pakistani agencies were supporting the insurgents through Bangladesh at that juncture. It was defeated on Indian ground. And similarly, we are on the cusp of defeating the Kashmiri insurgency on Kashmiri ground. But if you carry on alienating the local population through your policies, through your pronouncements, through this polarizing politics, then you should not be constantly saying, why is the solution not appearing? You are not allowing the solution to appear. And I'd like to say this. This is an intentional policy. They don't want to resolve the issue in Kashmir, because the issue in Kashmir allows them to demonize the Muslim, to constantly keep on saying, look at these Muslims. They're terrorists. They're terrorists. Even though there is so much evidence today that the terrorist constituency has shrunk to a very small proportion of the population and very small geographical areas. Almost
Right.
all the terrorist activities are in very small areas. Look at the focused counterterrorism operations that are taking place. How are they taking place? Because information is coming to the security forces, particularly to the Jammu and Kashmir police, and that information is coming from the local population. So if you keep on saying Muslims are like this or the Kashmiri Muslim is like this, who is fighting them? It is the Jammu and Kashmir police. Who are the Jammu and Kashmir police? They are Kashmiri Muslims predominantly. So if you do not acknowledge this, if you continue to demonize the whole community, well, some people are going to get angry. They are going to pick up the gun. And right
Right.
now, the only thing they can do is they cannot go head to head with the state forces because the state forces are very heavily dominant. The intelligence flows are very good. So then they come up with this new device. They adapt and they take people without a background, give them a weapon, give them a little bit of instruction or training, and send them in to kill a soft target. And that's why you
Right.
had this spate of targeted killings.
So, Mr. Sahni, to sum up, let me just say that you said that we are at the cusp of ending it, but of course it's all up to the security forces, and the security forces right now are looking at an uphill task. However, the center needs to weigh its next move very, very carefully if it wants management of this issue. Am I right? I mean, is that in one
Yes,
line?
but one line that I'd like to say is that the security forces are doing their jobs.
Right.
If you want to move beyond this cusp to an actual resolution, it is now in the hands of the political executive.
All right.
The security forces have already done and are continuing to do what they need to do.
Right, right. Thank you very much, Mr. Sahni, for that perspective and for giving us, setting a lot of things right in the minds, I'm sure, of our viewers and those who will subsequently watch this show. Thank you very much for giving us your time and joining us on this show, Mr. Sahni.
Thank
It
you
was a
for
pleasure
having me.
having you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And to all our viewers, I would like to thank you for watching this show. I would definitely want your comments and your feedback on this show. Also, please support us. Please support the kind of journalism we do. And do not forget to like, subscribe, share, and also, download this video if you want and share it to people. And, make sure that more and more of your friends, people who are interested in this topic, see it, watch it, and then again, of course, comment on this video. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye. Take care.